we have a rumble in the jungle. Except for that jungle happens to be in London. My name is Dorian. This is SCM Comics. We are covering the complete 4-part Apocalypse vs. Dracula series. If you're on YouTube, you can catch up by clicking on the playlist in the description. If you're on TikTok, it is real easy. We covered the first 2 issues. They're broken up into 2 parts. You can catch up very quickly. Now, on to issue number 3. And the comic book starts off with Van Helsing showing our detective how to apply garlic on all the windows and doorways. And it looks like they're trying to board it up. They're in some kind of safe house or whatever. And then when you turn the page, you see they're joined by Ozymandias and Hamilton's little brother, who is wheelchair bound. We'll find out more on him later. And then you have Apocalypse himself, just sitting outside the safe house, sitting there contemplating to himself. That just shows how much of a gangster he is, because he's not even trying to be safe inside the house. He's just waiting for whoever's coming, and they're coming. So then we do a flashback to Hamilton House a few hours earlier, where we see that the house has been ransacked, and we have Kubar, who is sitting on the table dead, not turned to a vampire, but he has his throat ripped out. So Apocalypse doesn't even bat an eyelash. He's like, oh, I guess he wasn't the fittest. I guess we have to dispose of him. And then Van Helsing's like, there's no need. He didn't get turned. He just got his throat ripped out. When vampires kill you but don't turn you, that's a sign of how they deal with their rivals. So then they run across Frederick, who is Hamilton's brother, who is wheelchair bound, which we talked about before. And Apocalypse is like, oh, well, he's a simpleton. They want to take a simpleton into war, and that's what my clan's probably waging right now. And Van Helsing is like, yeah, they're probably losing that war too. So with Kubar being killed but not turned, and with Frederick being left, leads to one thing, and he comes crashing through the walls. Hamilton is now leading the vampires, and he has turned the rest of Apocalypse clans into vampires. So Hamilton wastes no time, and he gets right in Apocalypse's face, and they pretty much get to fighting. And for a second, he is holding his own. And then Apocalypse shows, you might be good, but you ain't as good as me. And he turned his hand into a gun and pretty much shot him, and then he keeps shooting him. And then he turns his hands into a pair of blades, and he's about to cut off Hamilton's head when the rest of the clan all of a sudden joins in, and everybody starts attacking Apocalypse. So all those vampires are even too much for Apocalypse, and eventually they overwhelm him, and they're holding him down, and then Hamilton's about to bite his neck when Van Helsing comes out of nowhere and puts a cross on his forehead. And then our detective starts doing his patented flamethrowing and joins in to try to help Apocalypse. So Apocalypse, Van Helsing, our detective Ozymandias, and Frederick are all back in the corner. Our detective is trying to use his flames to keep the vampires back. They're still moving in for the kill when all of a sudden there's this flash of light, and our, I guess you could say, heroes are gone. So this is how Apocalypse and his crew got to the safe house, because Frederick has teleporting abilities. And then we also find out more about Frederick and Ozymandias, how Ozymandias used to train Frederick himself, and how Frederick was considered to be the fittest and was going to be picked, but Hamilton wasn't going to have that, and he beat his brother's head in while he was sleeping, and that's what turned him into a simpleton, in Apocalypse words. So our last book started with our detective in the opium house, and now he's having some withdrawals, and Van Helsing goes to him and says that he would help him with those withdrawals, once this is all over with. So eventually the vampire clan finds a safe house, and Apocalypse is outside fighting a bunch of them, and he's giving them the business, but there's a lot of them. And eventually they start to get into the house, and our detective and Van Helsing are doing what they can, but really it's Ozymandias who really helps out, because he's able to make carvings on the wall and then bring them to life, and the carvings start to fight the vampires. But really what all they're trying to do is hold out until daytime, and then once daytime comes, the vampires have to flee. They waste no time. Just like the vampires found out where the safe house was, they find where the vampires are keeping their caskets during the day, and they start stabbing the caskets, breaking them down. The detective starts burning the caskets and the whole house down, and pretty much the clan has been eliminated. But there's 2 caveats. So during the fight, Apocalypse got bitten by one of the vampires, and Van Helsing's like, oh no, you're about to turn into a vampire. Apocalypse like, calm down, I just need to go to my rejuvenation chamber and then I'll be fine. But then they flash to where it's held at, and it shows that I guess Hamilton went and he destroyed the rejuvenation chamber, so that's out the picture. And Hamilton's casket was amongst the caskets that they destroyed. His is with his mother, and they're on the way to go see Dracula.